Howdy, folks. So it has been almost exactly a year and not quite exactly 10,000 miles since I bought my 2019 Ford Fiesta ST. So I wanted to just give an update on what the first year and 10,000 miles have been like and what I think of the car at this point and what's good, what's bad, would I buy it again, all that stuff. So let's start off with the first thing. Has it been reliable over 10,000 miles? Yes, it has. There's not been one thing that's gone wrong with it. I've changed oil, rotated the tires, that's it. So, and that's what you would pretty much expect from a Ford vehicle that was brand new and only has 10,000 miles on it. So no surprises there. Some things that I don't like about the car. I really don't like the coolant temperature gauge. So every other gauge in the car is an analog style gauge that looks good. And then the coolant temperature gauge is just this, I don't know, really stupid looking digital display. It just doesn't match the rest of the gauge cluster. And every time you look at it, I get irritated that they made that design decision. Because there's plenty of room. They could have easily put another analog style gauge in there. I mean, it's minor, it's stupid, but I don't like it. Another little irritating thing that you deal with all the time, there's no one touch down for the passenger side window. There's one touch down and up on the driver's side, but the passenger side is, you have to hold it the entire time. My 2012 Jeep Wrangler has one touch down for both driver and passenger. If a 7-year-old Jeep Wrangler has a luxury feature that your brand new car doesn't have, I think you may have a design problem. A Jeep is not known for creature comforts, and yet it has one touch down for the passenger. So it's just a silly design decision, I think. So that's an irritation. The windows in the back don't go all the way down. You've probably got 4 inches of window at the highest point. I mean, obviously, as the driver, that's not a problem for me, but if you have passengers back there, that can be a bit of an irritation. I don't like the cup holder position in the front. It can, if you have something kind of tall in there, it interferes with the stick shift. So, I mean, I don't know what they really could have done, if they maybe could have sunk the cup holders a little lower or something to accommodate like a water bottle. I mean, it's easy enough to get around that by just, if you have a tall drink, put it between your legs. If it's a water bottle, just, put the cap on and throw it in the passenger seat. And there's also a cup holder in the door. You can use that potentially. But so just having the cup holders in the way of the shifters, it's not ideal. I don't like the position of the interior lock-unlock button. It is in the center, kind of on the dash up by the radio controls. And I actually don't mind controls being up there. Like, for example, on my Jeep, the controls for all the windows are mounted on the dash up by the radio. And I actually love that. It's very easy for both driver and passenger to access them. But in the Fiesta, the only control that is there that's not radio related are the locks. So all your window controls are on the doors as normal. So it's just something that takes some getting used to, but I don't like it. Anytime you valet your car, that they don't know where the locks are. I mean, they can use the key fob, obviously, but so it was an odd design decision, I thought. I don't like the center console storage capacity. It's the center console in this car is pretty small. I mean, you do have a decent sized glove box, but interior storage of that type's kind of limited. I mean, it hasn't really been a problem, but just know it's small. And the last thing that I don't like, there are obviously good reasons for this, gearing, etc. When you're cruising at like 75 miles per hour, you're running about 3,000 RPM. It's not hurting anything, and your fuel mileage is still pretty good. But I almost want a 7th gear just to kick that down to like 2,500 RPM for when you're just cruising along. Like I said, it's not hurting anything, but I feel like fuel economy would be helped quite a bit by having something different, either 7th gear, which is probably cost prohibitive for Ford. And they don't make Fiestas anymore in the U.S., so it's kind of a moot point. Either having a 7th gear or just changing the gearing of 6th gear maybe. But then there are other problems that come with that. So anyway, something I don't like, but it's okay. A few things which could improve, and these, just a couple actually. The stock exhaust note is more aggressive than a standard Fiesta, but it's still not very aggressive. So I know they're trying to appeal to the largest audience possible with not having too loud of an exhaust note, but something slightly more aggressive would be nice. And yes, I'm aware that there are a million aftermarket possibilities, to change this yourself to fit your preference. Second thing which could improve, the heater does not seem to get that hot, and it's possible that if I didn't own a Jeep Wrangler, I wouldn't even notice this. But the Jeep has the best heater of any vehicle I've ever been in. I mean, if you leave your hand up against a vent, it gets uncomfortably hot to the point where you almost can't leave your hand up there. So being sort of spoiled by the Jeep Wrangler, I think that's probably where me thinking that the heater in the Fiesta is not that warm. Obviously it's adequate. I haven't frozen to death. But just something that, having owned a vehicle with a very good heater, makes me think that could be improved. All right, things that I love about the car. This car has the best manual transmission of any vehicle I've ever owned. I've owned 14 cars. I think this is the 8th manual, and it's fantastic. It's great. Shifts very easily, shifts quickly. It's easy to drive. Like if you just feel like driving, you're not trying to drive fast or anything, it's very easy. In traffic, the clutch doesn't bother me. It probably would other people, but I barely notice it. I actually took it for inspection not like a week or two ago, and after I got the car back, the mechanic said, "That is the nicest clutch I think I've ever pressed," and I agreed with him. And just the manual, I love a manual transmission, period. And yeah, it really changes the driving experience, which is obviously why that's the only transmission that they offer in this car. Second thing that I love, the handling is great. The car just goes where you point it, and it's got a ton of grip, which is obviously the tires are involved in that. Stock tires, by the way, I got the ultra high performance summer only tires with it. I know there's an option to get all seasons. Didn't get that, and I'm very glad that I didn't. The grip on, I can't remember what these are. I think they're Bridgestones, but they're great tires. They really do grip well. I have a second set of tires and wheels that I purchased for winter. They're not winter tires, but they are performance all seasons. And after running those throughout the winter and then flipping back to the summer only tires, you could very, very much tell a difference. These grip a lot more. You can take corners faster without torque vectoring. kicking in, or without me feeling it kicking in anyway. Really, they're really good tires. And so the handling coupled with the tires, it's really a lot of fun. I love the power. I mean, it's not crazy. It's 200 horsepower, about 200 foot-pounds of torque, 215 maybe, can't remember. But it's certainly adequate. I mean, the car is small and light. It's just a blast to drive. I mean, you can buy tuning kits and whatnot that will bump up the power, but I don't think that the car needs much. I mean, you will have a blast with it being simply stock. And I have driven some lightly modified ones, and certainly a difference, but it doesn't detract from my stock vehicle. And I really want to keep mine stock, because if I ever do go to sell it, which I don't anticipate, but you never know. If I do go to sell it, I think a stock Fiesta ST will be worth more than one that's been modified. I think finding one unmodified will be difficult in the secondary market. So I'm keeping mine stock just for resale value, even though I intend to keep the car. So the fourth thing that I like about this car is the previous three all contribute to the car's personality. And the car really does have a very excited personality. It's sort of like a dog that likes to ride in the car. And if you say to that dog, do you want to go for a ride? And they get all excited and they don't know where they're going. They don't care. They just want to go for a ride. This car is kind of like that. The car just has this personality like, oh, you're pushing the accelerator. Yes, let's go. I don't know where we're going, but I'm excited to get you there. And I don't know if this is a good analogy, bad analogy, but it is like the excited puppy that just wants to hang out and do things, and it doesn't care what you're doing. It's just glad to be with you and going where you're going. The car feels like that, and so every time you get in it, it puts a smile on your face. I've certainly, before this vehicle, I don't think I've ever owned a car that did that. So it's unique to this car for me. I mean, I've never owned an exotic or anything. I'm sure those put a smile on your face every time you get in them. And perhaps one day I'll know what that's like. But for me, this car has a great personality. It makes you happy to be in the car. And that's a great quality. Fifth thing I like, the styling. I feel like the Ford engineers did a really good job of differentiating this from the standard Fiesta. I mean, you would never confuse the two, but they didn't go over the top. The styling is just slightly aggressive. So it's enough to set it apart. It's enough to communicate, oh, this car is something different. But it doesn't go to that boy racer level. I think anyone can drive this car. So really like the styling. It's aggressive enough to set it apart, but not look silly. Sixth thing I like, the gas mileage. It's very economical. That's why I bought the car, is that I wanted a practical yet fun daily driver, because I was tired of driving the Jeep every day. And this car definitely does that. If you're just commuting in it, which is what I primarily do, it's cheap to operate. So I just went on a road trip that put me over the 10,000 mile milestone. And so before the trip, when the trip started, I had 9,642 miles on the car. And my average miles per gallon over the lifetime since I've had it was 30.4, which is not that good, but I don't drive it very conservatively either. I mean, I'm not flying at 120 miles an hour, but the car's fun to drive, so I take advantage of that. So I'm not that conservative of a driver in the car, so you would do better than 30.4 if you weren't accelerating excessively. So that was before my trip. I reset everything just to because I wanted to see how well it would do on a long road trip since I hadn't taken it on one yet. So the trip was 470 miles one way, and on the way down I was going between 70 and 80, and I had the air conditioning on almost the entire time, and I averaged 35 miles per gallon, which I thought was pretty good. I was happy with that. I was a little disappointed on the trip back, so obviously still 470 miles, but I was averaging slightly higher speeds. I was going 79 anytime I was able to, so it would have been averaging between 75 and 80 most of the way. And here's why I was disappointed. I had the air conditioning off. It was cooler on the trip back, and so I thought I would do better, but I really didn't. I averaged 35.3 on the way back. So the best mileage I ever got was on a 90-mile trip. I know it's not very far, but I got 38.5 on that 90-mile trip. Now, granted, I was trying to be really conservative because I was just seeing, okay, how high can I get this? Another thing I like the rear storage, the capacity. It's obviously, this is not like owning an SUV or a truck, so you can't expect to have a ton of storage in the car, and you don't. However, for as small as the car is, I've been able to fit a decent amount of stuff in this thing, especially if you can fold the rear seats forward. I was able to fit like I don't know how many BTUs, but an air conditioning, heating combination unit it's quite large. I was able to fit that in the back of the car and bring that thing home. It's been perfectly adequate. Obviously, you are not going to go pick up 2x4s with this thing. That's not what it's meant for. But for what the car is, I feel like the storage is perfectly adequate. I'm very happy with it. Another thing I like, from the factory, it comes with the concave blind spot mirrors built into your side mirrors. Those were added on to the Jeep that I've got, and I was very glad to see that they came with this car from the factory. Those are just so nice. I mean, they give you a lot more confidence just driving down the road, since you can see a lot more than you can without them. So glad they came from the factory. And the last thing I love about the car is that the air conditioning system is cold. Like, it can be 90 degrees outside and you will be cold in the car. You'll be forced to turn it off, and that's fantastic. I love that, because that's the Jeep and this car are completely reversed on these topics. So some quirks. There are a few interesting things. One stupid one that doesn't really matter is that the sunroof has one touch open, which is great. But you push that button, the sunroof opens, but not all the way. There's like an inch that if you hold the button, it'll open another inch. I don't know why it doesn't open all the way with the one touch feature. So you have to push it, let it open, then hold the button, then it opens all the way. I don't understand it, but it's stupid, it's silly, it doesn't really matter. Second quirk, this one does get a little annoying, and could just be my car. The temperature control system seems to make up its own mind after you've shut the car off and turn it back on as to what it's going to do. And I really tend to only notice this in the winter, so with the heater, but I usually don't leave my fan turned up all the way. It's usually on like click 1 or 2, so it's not blowing very hard. But you'll shut the car off, go hop back in it a couple hours later, and it'll just start blowing. It'll be set to max. I don't know why it does that. So I mean, you just turn the knob back down and it's fine, and it works perfectly. It just decides, I guess, that, oh, it's winter, JC must be cold. We'll turn the fan up. So I wish it would remember and stay on the setting that I had it. The third quirk, and this one's the most serious. I've never had a vehicle do this. Like I said, I've owned 14. If you leave the car running while you're fueling it up, it will occasionally die on you. And I assume that that's, you know how if you don't put the gas cap on a vehicle, the check engine light will come on. I assume that this is a similar problem where the vehicle is detecting an issue. But yeah, I mean, it's probably only happened twice, but it has definitely happened. Now, it's only actually died twice, I think, but it has like sputtered many times. And in the winter, you know, if I'm fueling up, I'm usually doing it in the morning, so the car's not warm. So I don't like to, you know, start and stop a cold vehicle in quick succession. So I prefer to leave it running while I'm fueling it up. And yeah, I guess the car doesn't like it, so obviously it's not hurting anything, but it's just an annoyance. Things I should have done differently at purchase. This first one is a maybe. Still not 100% on whether I made a mistake or not. I did not get the Recaro seats. I just have the standard cloth seats, which I do like. They're actually quite comfortable on that road trip. I was never uncomfortable. I was never like ready to get out of the car. I have talked to other owners who have the Recaros who say that they do get uncomfortable when they're sitting in the car. You know, because, you know, those are much more aggressive seats with a different seating position, and they, I'm told, tend to pinch the back of your legs a little bit, which just is uncomfortable if you're sitting in the car for a long period of time. But, you know, the Recaros are, one, they're leather, which is just nicer to clean, and they look better, and they're better if you are going around a corner quickly because they've got the extra bolstering. So, like I said, that's a maybe. Maybe I should have gotten those, but maybe I'm happier, since this is primarily a commuter car, maybe I'm happier with the cloth ones. But anyway, I have the cloth, and they're not bad. Second thing that I should have done, I wish I would have gotten navigation. I know a lot of people don't care about in-car navigation because they're just going to use Waze or Google Maps or whatever. And I actually really like not touching my cell phone when I'm in the car. I prefer the navigation just built into the touchscreen of the vehicle, you know, and then, you know, you don't have to worry about, oh, my phone's about to die, and of course my charging cable's not in the car. All of those issues are able to be worked around, obviously. But I just like having nav built into the vehicle. It's built into my Jeep. I like having it there. So I wish I would have gotten that. However, that being said, Android Auto does work perfectly fine. It's not wireless Android Auto. You do have to plug the cable in, but it does work. So you have options, but I wish I would have gotten a nav. So, I mean, that's kind of my review. You should buy the car if you have the opportunity. Now, they're not selling them new anymore. 2019 was the last year in the States. But if you're thinking about getting a used one, if it's been taken care of, I highly recommend it. It's a great vehicle, or it has been for me over the first 10,000 miles. So one final item. You might have noticed that my ST badge is different than most ST badges. So most ST badges are red with a chrome like outline, and mine is black with a red outline and then a chrome outline. Those badges were given to people who participated in the ST Octane Academy performance driving class, and I was told by the instructor that that's the only way you can get these badges is by taking this class. I did a search online, couldn't find any of those badges. So perhaps he was telling the truth, and if so, that's awesome, because I had a blast at that class, learned a lot, and Ford designing a special badge just to give to people who participated in their program. I mean, that's just a really cool perk. Shows a lot of personality on Ford's marketing department, and shows that they appreciate their customers and the people who are actually getting more into the vehicle than the average person. But speaking of the ST Octane Academy, so that since I bought a Ford performance vehicle new, you could attend the ST Octane Academy for free within 1 year. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do that recently, and it was a great experience. Cannot speak highly enough of this program. Obviously, I know that I paid for the program in the price of the new car. I get that. I'm not an idiot. But this was definitely an expensive event for them to put on. And so just offer, and they don't have to offer this to, you could not offer it and it wouldn't change anyone's decision to purchase or not purchase the car. So they truly are like throwing it in as a nice thing to do for new car buyers. And the entire experience was great. I had never done anything similar. So very, very, very happy that I was able to do that. It was, and my car is now slightly different, because I got this cool little badge. So they still do offer similar programs for their other performance vehicles. Obviously, they don't sell the Focus ST or RS anymore. They don't sell the Fiesta ST anymore. But they do have this program for the Raptor, the Edge ST, and the GT350 and GT500. So you can still, and you can just purchase the class on your own, which, after going down and participating, I think it would be worth the money to do it. And I'd like to do a similar thing in the future. But that's my Fiesta ST 1 year, 10,000 mile ownership review. Love the car. Highly recommend owning one. And I hope this was useful to you. Well, thanks for sticking with me. Until next time, farewell.